All right, everybody, welcome back. We're doing 6 years later, leftovers chat. 6 years after the show has ended. I'm Ethan. I've seen the show a lot. I'm here with Benji. Benji's in the UK. He hasn't seen the show yet. So far, we're 5 episodes in, and today we're going to talk about episode 5, Gladys. It's a pretty dense episode, so we're going to get right to it really quick. Benji, I just want to know, after the BJ and the AC, that we got this episode. What did you think of it?
It was a tough episode to watch, actually. I don't tend to do too good with that kind of, subject. I don't know if anyone does, to be honest. I'd hope not. So it was a tough one to sit through, but at the same time, it definitely felt like it took things up to the next level in terms of the stakes, because this is the first, if you don't count the raid on Holy Wayne's place in episode 2. I believe this is one of the first deaths of a character that we've come to know. We didn't know her well, but we knew a little bit about her, and she's been one of the members of the GR that we've sort of seen the most of so far. And so it was definitely an emotional gut punch, whether or not you agree with what the GR are doing. I myself last episode got a little bit angry. Well, I was more than a little bit angry at their actions, and I was so frustrated with them. I was like railing on against them. And then the start of this episode, that scene happens, and we're going to discuss that in what exactly happens in a moment. But yeah, it kind of took me back down, playing. Well, nobody deserves that. So I kind of reevaluated my position on them a little. Now that they are, in a sense, the victims of this kind of crime, and obviously they're not all the victims, but they're potential victims. They're in danger, and it definitely kind of changes the way that we're viewing them from here on out.
Sure. And that's great. And before we get started, I just want to say that this was it for a lot of people. Like, they watched the first 4 episodes, and then they saw this and probably turned it off at the credits and didn't come back to the show.
Like I said, it was a tough episode to watch.
Yeah. So let me start at the beginning here. We have Patti and Gladys, that we know her name is now Gladys, are having some kind of meeting about, I guess, their GR plans for the day. And Gladys and her GR companion are going around being generally shitty, doing your standard GR things. And then in the evening, standing outside the gas station, Gladys is grabbed violently, taken to the woods, is brutally placed on a tree, and violently and very graphically stoned to death. With her last breath, she cries out and begs for her life, and then she gets one more stone to the face and is killed. And then we have the credits. It's the last stone, and you're like into it.
Yeah.
The music is...
Well, that's the way the main theme often works for me, and a lot of people watching these kind of shows is, whatever the events of the cold open are, that music hits us kind of immediately afterwards. So fans of The Office, for example, there's almost always a comedic cold open, and then you get that nice little piano theme. So then when you start hearing that piano theme, even if you haven't seen the cold open before, you're instantly kind of, your mood's lifted, and this is definitely the opposite. And it definitely takes on a sinister tone.
Sure. And, this is very worth mentioning. I should have mentioned this at the beginning. This is the first episode directed by Mimi Leader, and she's got a very long resume, which I didn't write down, but you recognize her work for sure. And this is where I think the show, and I'll talk more about this later, right after the recap, is it really gels, because she basically stays on an executive producer and director through the end of the series. And you could really tell there's a difference, I think, in the show before Mimi and after. Let's get to it. We start the show with Patti waking up the guilty remnant in the middle of the night with pots and pans.
And I gotta say, they make for a pretty crappy search team, don't they?
Yeah.
Given that nobody can yell or kind of shout out their name, right?
Good call. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I picked up so much of this episode that I hadn't noticed before watching it for this. You could almost make a poster of that wood scene with all the flashlights going, and Dean with his gun and Laurie looking. You can almost make a poster of that and you're like, wow, we're in the leftovers, almost like a weird hero shot. But yeah, they go to the woods searching, and some dogs are getting shot. Wouldn't be leftovers without some dogs getting shot. Laurie finds the stand-up corpse of Gladys, who has been stoned to death. It's pretty brutal. Kevin is awoken and puts on his shirt, his dirty shirts. His shirts are missing. In the background of the news, you hear about the ATFEC raid in Florida.
And he wakes up to the sound of dogs barking, actually.
Oh, is it? Okay, is it overlap there?
Yeah, it's just a brief soundbite for a moment, but there's a couple of dogs barking as he wakes up.
Sure, and I don't think there's nothing to that either. Kevin asked Jill about his shirts, and she's seen the clean ones. This uncomfortable, as I get older, this uncomfortable shot of Amy looking very young, but also very attractive. Ask Kevin if she can make coffee. He kind of gives her a once over and turns and walks away.
Does she live at their house?
Yeah, she's staying with
she's
them.
there.
Yeah, she's living with them. Yeah, she is living with them.
Okay. Yeah, and it's worth mentioning as well that in episode 4 we had the baby Jesus go missing, and we kind of explored the significance of that. This time the shirts have gone missing, so I don't think it's a coincidence that twice in a row we've seen objects go missing, and obviously we talk about a loss a lot on this, and the shirts are as of now lost. So that theme.
Yeah, and it's frustration at the Garvey house. It's always frustration, and right, he's got this problem with the alarm he works on all episode, and he's working with it, and the doorbell rings, and surprisingly it's Patti. Patti tells Kevin about Gladys the way she can, and the next conversation we have is Meg and Laurie. And one of the big things I picked up in this episode that I had not picked up before is this episode is really the transformation of Meg. Like, she's outside the house with Laurie, and her conversation has been like, well, weren't we expecting this? How far do we expect to push people for them to push back? And can you tell me there wasn't a contingency plan set up for this particular course of events? And at the same time, I noticed she's popping out some cigarettes.
Yeah, and she's all in.
And she's lending, well, she's not quite in yet, but she is lending Laurie her lighter because Laurie doesn't seem to have a lighter.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. She's not all in, although mentally she does seem to be a little bit more in the game than even Laurie.
Sure.
Which is an interesting reversal of roles, given that Laurie's meant to be her mentor, but she's the one doing the teaching here. She tells her, remember, we want, I think the line was, we want them to remember something they want to forget. What we were expecting. So she has a little teaching moment to Laurie, which not the way that relationship usually works.
And it all seems to be too much for Laurie because she passes out, right? The crime scene is a complete mess. The cops are not respecting the scene at all. This is another theme that runs through the complete disrespect of everybody to the guilty remnant. And Kevin asks Patti to stay off the street. We think she's going to tell him where to go, but she says, of course, he'll stay off the street for now, I guess. Gladys falls off the tree, which is pretty disgusting. Then Kevin has to go to Jill's school to let her know that something happened to a member of the GR. And just like kind of Kevin before, he automatically assumes that it's going to be something wrong with Laurie, but he wanted to squash that rumor before it gets to her. We go to Laurie at the hospital. We have a judgy doctor telling her not to smoke, and if she wants any more she had a panic attack, and if she wants any more medicine, she's going to have to see a psychiatrist first. This is where like a real strong storyline for me on this episode starts to come in. Patti picks up Laurie, and it's time for kind of like Patti and Laurie's day off. And they turn on the music in the car, which I guess they're not usually allowed to listen to. And it's a 80s classic by Hall & Oates. And what do you think was happening like right when you saw this?
At first, I thought that Patti was looking out for Laurie to begin with, which in a way she is. But the more the episode went on, the more I kind of felt like, in fact, she was more looking out for herself and for the guilty remnant as a whole. At this moment, I thought, okay, she's just kind of going easy on Laurie, giving her a bit of the nice treatment, so she'll...
And we learn to find out later that there's a very real reason for what she's doing. And we're going to...
Yeah, and it's more calculated than it appears.
Yeah, and everything is here. And in this early part of the episode, I'm really going to tear through some stuff because there's some deep things coming up. Next, we go to, I don't know his name. I'm going to call him Jerk Cop. He calls the ATFEC, the ATFEC, to take over the Gladys case, and he's reading to Kevin the Riot Act of Why. He's going through the handbook. And the mayor backs up Kevin, as she does pretty much the whole episode. And we find out that Agent Killarney at the ATFEC is Kevin's contact. The mayor wants to make sure Kevin can handle the guilty remnant murder. And so now we're back with Patti and Laurie. Outside the hotel, Laurie witnesses a normal family, and Patti lets her know it's okay to sleep in the hotel bed. And while she's trying to draw a bath, she has visions of Gladys getting stoned. Kevin leaves a message for Agent Killarney, and then Kevin grabs some beer and some dinner and decides to stake out the night at the GR house. And he wakes up the next morning with a townsperson just basically letting him know, don't invest too much time in trying to find the murder of Gladys, because no one cares about the GR, especially not around here. They tried to buy my house. I know they took over a church, all that kind of stuff. Again, Kevin gets home, and again, the alarm is not set. So this is a constant frustration that's going on. And, you know, all this stuff with Kevin, there is a theme. I'm going to come to that later that I'm working on, but all of this is leading to one thing. And did you notice that Kevin's kitchen is destroyed?
Well, Kevin's kitchen was destroyed in episode 1 as well, wasn't it? He finds the kitchen kind of a bit messed up, and then he goes, and when he sees that deer, he says to the deer, were you in my kitchen this morning?
Oh, right. Okay.
So it's not the first time his kitchen's been a little bit out of order.
Good call. And he goes to the kitchen, and Amy's there, and they have a little talk about Jill. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And about Kevin as well. I believe we've just passed this. When he wakes up in the car, he's woken up by dogs again.
Wow.
There's
nice.
the man with the dogs on the leash.
Right.
They're kind of attacking the window. So I think that's the second time this episode.
Wow. Okay. Good. Yeah. I wasn't even in tune to that. Amy and Kevin are having a conversation, and it goes back to the theme I guess I'll have to get into it soon, is he asks how his daughter is, and Amy says, you know, she's Jill. And Kevin says, is she okay? And Amy says, Jill doesn't do okay. I guess it's time to talk about it now. Kevin has to tell his daughter he's getting a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is underlying, and I didn't even catch this when I've seen it the first couple of times. I think this is one of the underlying anger in this whole episode for him, is building up to this point that he has to tell his daughter at the end that he's getting a divorce.
Yeah,
Laurie?
I mean, Kevin's a bit like the Hulk. You know, he's always angry. But this episode, his anger does seem a notch higher than usual.
Which is causing almost everything to go a notch higher for him, right?
Yeah, and he still has no shirts as well when he gets back to his house. He can't find his shirts again, right?
Right. He can't find his shirts again. That's an on-running theme. It takes him to the laundromat in a minute. Okay, so Laurie wakes up to regular clothing. As Patti is eating at a restaurant, Patti is talking and letting Laurie know that she can take the day off. Talk, get things off her chest. Patti orders breakfast for her, French toast. Kevin is again missing shirts, as you said. And he goes to the cleaners. I think he's still leaving another message on the phone. Is he leaving a message on the phone when he's at the cleaners?
Yeah.
He requests his shirts. The guy really acts like, you know, no ticket, no service.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure Kevin's shirts aren't there.
Reminded me of Mike from Better Call Saul, you know. No stickers, no parking.
On his way out, he runs into Nora, and I believe they have a nice talk. And it says right here in my notes, Kevin Garvey has dreamy eyes.
Yeah, well, I was going to wait until we got into the, you know, how handsome Kevin is part of the episode, but
I think we're here.
The fact that he has no shirts this whole episode, real shame, isn't it?
Well, he's wearing shirts, but they're not his. He's not like walking around bare-chested, at least that I noticed.
There's a couple moments while he's looking for them.
Now, did you notice that the cops and other people and the guy who knocked on Kevin's door keep calling the guilty remnant Moonies?
No, I didn't notice that.
Do you understand that reference?
I'm not sure that I do.
Okay, there was a cult in the 80s, and I'm not sure exactly what happened. They were called Moonies.
Right.
So that's something to look into. All right, so Matt is called into the station, and Kevin questions him. I don't really understand where this comes from. I guess I do. That Kevin breaks it down to him. They stole his church. I don't think Matt did anything. Matt says he was at home with his study group. Matt asks about Gladys and if he can see her later to pray over her. And Kevin says no.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about Matt getting hit by the stone, and looking back at it, that's Gladys was with him at the time, right? And she was also hit by a stone. So
no, she's not one of them.
Oh, is she not?
No, she's not.
Okay.
But you've seen her before. They have done foreshadowing in the past. They have her. Someone had thrown paint on her.
Yeah.
And so there is a foreshadowing there. So Kevin, of course, this is another theme of how horrible a police chief he's being in this episode. He goes completely unprepared and totally forgets about this town meeting to have the curfew.
It's not the first time he's forgotten about town meeting either.
No, it's not.
In episode 1, he forgets. He just doesn't seem to care that much about the kind of council bureaucracy stuff.
Well, and it's also, this one's, a little bit different because it was called as just a council meeting, but the whole town came. And the whole town came because they heard about it because everybody hates the GR and word gets out. I wouldn't be surprised if the cops put that out at all. So he's really not prepared. He doesn't win over the crowd. He certainly doesn't win over the council because the council sees the crowd. He actually gets into an argument with Dean. And Dean,
I mean, that guy pops up in all the weirdest places, right? He's there when the GR find Gladys, and he's there in the meeting. And this definitely gets around.
This might be the episode where they say his name for the first time.
Yeah, they do. There's it's when he's when they're kind of at the crime scene and he's sat on the I don't know, it's like a log or something, and somebody walks past him and says, "Hey, Dean," and he says, "Oh, we have an arrangement." Right. And we learn as well that he's apparently about to be late for his ballroom dancing. So I was hoping we would get an episode later just kind of focused on Dean and his ballroom dancing. Actually,
that's season 3. And Dean actually suggests that the guilty remnant probably did this to themselves. And at the end, there's no curfew granted. Kevin then goes to the GR house and lets them know it's open season and there's nothing I can do. I want you to stay inside, but you're not going to stay inside. And he gives them whistles. They can call for help if they're getting attacked. And we're back to Megan making her transformation. He asked her if she's still talking. She said yes. And he asked her where his wife is. And she goes, "She's not your wife anymore. This is still happening, this transformation of hers."
Bit of an asshole move because Kevin's just, even he says he's like the only guy looking out for them, and they're just completely like alienating him and kind of, well, I say ignoring. Obviously, they're not going to speak back to him, but they seem to be pretty indifferent to him, and they're really not helping themselves with this guy who's like the guy trying to protect them. And this one from Meg as well, because we already know Kevin. He's tried to help Meg in previous episodes, and he's gone out there to try and help all of them, and she's just kind of rubbing it in his face that he's getting a divorce, which I believe at this moment it's unlikely that that's been finalized yet. So technically speaking, she is still his wife, right? So she's just kind of rubbing that in for no other reason than just being an asshole.
Yeah, and Meg is definitely taking that turn, and she had that discussion with Laurie earlier we discussed, and her tone is completely changed since she cut down that tree a little bit, it looks like, right?
Yeah. That's got to be the moment.
All right, now, so went a little bit fast here because now we got to slow down for some things because we're back to Patti and Laurie. Patti gets a doggy bag, and Patti talks about Gladys and how her son died in Yemen, and Gladys got upset and was starting to question her commitment and how there was lots of crying and moping, and that started to happen outside of the house and in the open, and that couldn't happen. Patti invited Gladys to speak her troubles out loud. She didn't speak, just like Laurie. Patti says, "I'm going to tell you like I told her." I wrote down every word of this because I love it so much. "I understand the pull. I understand family." And I'm paraphrasing, but because it's comfortable and it's easy because what we do is very, very hard. But there can't be any doubt because doubt is fire, and that is going to burn you up until you are but ash. What did you think of that? I mean, when I first the power of this actress, Ann Dowd, who they kept quiet for 4 episodes and now is coming out, it's mind-blowing and it's mesmerizing. And, you know, she's won Emmys after this for things like Handmaid's Tale. And I mean, it's just amazing to me. What did you think of it?
Yeah. So the first thing that stuck out to me was how self-righteous this kind of sounds, where she's like, you know, what we do is hard. And she kind of makes it out to be, at least from kind of it, the underlying suggestion for me was that it's like somebody who says, you know, I don't know, somebody who's doing charity service somewhere and they're saying, it's hard, but it's good work. And what she's saying here, she's saying it's not easy, it's hard, you know, it's hard. And she makes it sound like they're doing some kind of great, glorious work that's so hard and it takes such commitment. But in fact, we know that what they do is stand around and just, you know, do like trashy moves, like steal stuff out of people's houses on Christmas. And at least at this moment in time, when we don't understand enough of their kind of motivation yet, it does seem like she has this image of herself and the image of this GR as a whole, which just is not accurate. And she's kind of persuaded herself that they're doing this work for some righteous motivation, and that's why they need to be so committed. And there's a disconnect for me. But that's
cults in general, right?
Yeah, I guess. So maybe I shouldn't have been surprised by that. There was one other thing that stuck out to me in that line, which I didn't catch when I was watching it, which was the mention of fire burning them up. And it's not the first time we hear fire mentioned this episode. I'm going to come back to it when we talk about Matt in the car, and also at the end of the episode. But it's a clear foreshadowing of something that comes later.
Sure. The next paragraph was also very important. I wrote a lot. She says, "Do you remember what you told me to do the last session just before everything changed?"
I didn't know if she was talking about before. I assumed she was talking about after the departure, but part of me was wondering if that was referring to before the departure, because when she says everything changed, that sounded like it could be referring to the departure and whether they were connected before that and they remained, and then that's the connection that brought her into the GR. I don't know. I don't think that's what it was, but that was one possibility. The other one was that they have those group sessions in the GR, right? And I'm assuming they talk in their own kind of roundabout way, and they obviously must have mentioned something that she's referring to here. And she writes down, doesn't she? She writes down a name as she's saying this, and the name is Neil.
Yep, she cries, writes down Neil on the bag, and goes to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
This is where this show gets a little hard because, you know, I know the future. I'm going to keep it to myself. Okay, so Kevin goes to Matt's and he sees the group, including the father who got his child baptized. The one thing I didn't write down in this episode was this whole, I guess, doubting Thomas story.
Yeah, and that was a big moment for me. I noted that because that's, it's like I was saying, that's the second time fire is mentioned. He mentions that. I can't remember the whole story, but Thomas talks to Jesus. Jesus calls him a teacher. Jesus says, "No, let me take you aside and I'll explain some truths to you." And he explains it to Thomas. And then, when Thomas comes back, he tells to the other disciples, if I told you what Jesus has told me, I would be stoned to death and burnt by fire. And then Matt says it's easier to stay silent than speak truths. And it felt like in that sense he was comparing himself to the GR, and he's saying, so it's the GR that are the silent ones, clearly, and he's the one speaking the truths. And so his job is harder. And it's another case actually of, like Patti was saying before, how their job is hard. He's saying again, his job's harder than what the GR have. He's the one speaking the truths, and they're the one being silent. Whether that was the intention, I'm not sure, but that's what I heard.
And do you think he was talking about himself, or maybe trying to put himself in their position?
I'm not sure, but he said he did say it was easier to stay silent, right?
Sure. He says that because they're silent, they're already dead, and he wants to bring them back to life. So yeah, he was talking about himself. You're right.
Yeah, and the final part of that was the mention of stoning, which is obviously there's a clear link there to the fate of Gladys. And then he talks about fire, and that may come into play in the fate as well. We'll see.
We're going to talk about the fate of Gladys for sure. Because when they get to the morgue, there's no body.
Mm-hmm.
Agent Killarney got the body. Kevin yells into the phone, this is the third call. And then the weirdest music cut I've had so far in the show is it goes to What a Fool Believes by the Doobie Brothers, which is it was like, I guess, Song of the Year 1970 something. It's a very cheesy, poppy 70s tune, just like Love Will Keep Us Together. And they drive up to a house. They place this bag, which I assume has her lunch in it, and places it on the door for the person that I assume is Neil.
Yeah, well, it says Neil on the bag, actually.
Well, yeah, and I assume it's his house. That's his house,
okay.
too. And the radio is turned off, and it looks to me like the day off is done. Day off over. You had your chance, back to GR work.
And I was going to ask you, you may not be able to tell me, but so she's talked about Neil, and then she goes and drops this bag off for Neil. If Neil is either family of hers or close friend or husband, I don't know. She's dropping a bag off for him, and that looks like it's got food in, right? Well, okay, don't tell me, but
no, I think I think from this episode, you can gather the waitress said you don't need it. You don't need a doggy bag because you don't have any food. She was like, "Go get me a bag anyway," and then she asked to use the bathroom. It's fairly obvious that she took a shit in the bag and put it on the door.
Okay, that was not obvious to a younger English gentleman like myself. That behavior is not so common over here.
Yes. Well, that's all we do in America. Is we shit in bags and put it on the door.
So it's not food then. Okay.
It is food.
I was going to say, well, it depends
in a way.
Yeah. I mean, if it had been, I was like, is that kind of some hypocrisy from Patti, and she's kind of looking out for a family member, and kind of she's the big boss, but she's also breaking the rules because she can. And that was where I was wondering if it would take us, but I don't think so.
I think Patti is a better manager than people give her credit for, and she knows when someone needs a day off, or their head's going to explode. Yeah,
but I don't know if she's, like I was saying before, I don't know if that was she gave her a day off because she needed a day off, or she gave her a day off so she could
take a day off herself.
Well, also so she could, because like I was saying before, it seemed like she had Laurie's interest at heart to begin with, but as she speaks, it's pretty clear she's thinking about the reputation of the GR and their kind of cause, and she doesn't want Laurie to be the weak link.
Sure.
So I don't know if it is quite so kind-hearted of her.
We'll get into that in later episodes, I believe. So Kevin's alarm is going off at home, and I just want to take a moment before we start this section, and we're doing good on time because I wanted to save, because this is where all the heavy stuff comes in. This is almost, I'm going to say this almost every episode, this is almost the most important scene for me in The Leftovers, period. Because if this conversation doesn't happen, my ears don't perk up in a losty kind of, I like strange stuff in my TV shows kind of way, right? He's talking to Agent Killarney, who is basically sounds like he's a bureaucrat, and is like, "Oh, I've been down in Florida. You sent more than one message? I didn't get it. It's okay, buddy." And then all of a sudden, Kevin can't get the body because she's in the system and there's nothing you can do. And then he tells Kevin, the tone changes. He tells Kevin to hold on to all that evidence stuff, man. We'll get to it. It'll be 4 to 6 weeks. You'll hear from an agent. And then the voice gets really low and really sinister. And Kevin is barely like noticing. And then he says, "If you want, we can just eliminate the infestation."
Yeah.
And that's when my ears perk up, and I'm like, "What? Okay, next." Kevin says, "Excuse me," kind of like I did in my mind. And he said, "We can have 3 vans full of armed agents here in a week. Find their compound. Chief, this shit spreads if you let it. Don't worry about your victim. She doesn't give a shit. Worry about your town." And Kevin asks what happens. They go away. They aren't your problem. Say the word. Everything goes back to normal. Kevin says, "No thanks." And, the guy's voice perks up and says, "Good luck with that, Chief." I just want your opinion, because these are the scenes that I want to hear how someone else watching it for the first time takes it, because, that's the stuff that gets my blood pumping for these TV shows, especially these Damon Lindelof kind of shows. Like, this is why this episode is a sea change for me here in the show.
Yeah, well, it immediately called me back to episode 2, where the kind of a group of men storm Holy Wayne's place, and they just kind of open fire. They don't seem to care about who they're hitting. They just sort of fire at will. And they seem to have this kind of attitude against cults, because that's what Holy Wayne and the GR have in common here, is that they're kind of widely regarded as cults. And the way he talks about them, it's pretty clear. He sounds like he's your local pest control crew, and he's like, yeah, if you've got an infestation, we'll just wipe it out. It's no deal. We can come over, do that quickly, be out of your mind. But these are, at least to us, these are human beings. But it's pretty clear the government don't see them that way. So yeah, when your own government sees you as kind of the same level as like a cockroach, that's got to be pretty worrying.
I'm not sure why. Comment on that.
I'm not sure why the GR, maybe, I don't know. Do they not understand, or has this never happened to any of them before? Could this be like a first? Because I'm sure there must be other police chiefs in other towns that are not quite as moral as Kevin, and they sound like this is something they've done before, right? So I'm assuming the GR must know that this happens.
And with what we're seeing later, you know what I mean? Like, this happens all the time. Like I said before, when we were talking about, how many people this happened to, like I said, this is a microcosm. This is going on all over the place. And he was talking about other cults. And he said, so which ones are the guilty remnants? Oh, those. What's up with the smoking anyway? It's like there's so many different religious things that have popped up since the departure that they changed the whole branding of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division to make it about explosive and cults as well. So yeah, I mean, it's happening everywhere. And what makes this one, I guess in my mind, more sinister than that first one, because I just wasn't thinking of due process when we saw that first episode, is this whole like sinister, let's bring this guy in on this. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's time to let this chief know that this is a service we provide, and you can get back to dealing with what you have to deal with. No one needs this right now. Do you know what I mean? They're not letting us get back to the way things were before the departure. They're being these quote unquote living reminders. So
yeah, and I was gonna ask you about that, because they mentioned a couple of times, Meg mentions that as well, that they're kind of there to remind people. I was a little confused, just from a pure kind of plot world building sense, at why, if they are meant to be reminding people of the departure, why is it that they kind of steal all those pictures of people's families? Because I know they have that policy, like there is no family, but it seems to me taking out pictures and reminders of people's families, like, how does that remind them of the departure? If anything, getting rid of all the pictures would help them forget it, in my mind.
No comment.
Okay, well, as long as it's an intentional kind of thing and it's not something that I've missed, I'm happy to sit on that one.
No comment. So Kevin declines the offer, and Kevin gets drunk. He gets really drunk. In fact, I didn't need to take too many notes because I remember the scene very well, and this goes back to his underlying issues he's having. It goes back to the divorce he has to tell his child about. It goes back to it's completely inappropriate for a chief of police. Like, he shouldn't be doing that. This could get him fired. I'm surprised. Spoilers, it doesn't get him fired. It's some kind of mental breakdown. It's some kind of terrorism. pure and simple, and he gets shirts, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't get his shirts. Guy just gives him white shirts.
Right. Yeah, you're talking about the shirt. I thought you were still talking about him drinking. I didn't know how him drinking was terrorism yet.
Well, no,
yeah,
well, I mean, he gets really drunk and then goes on a tear against...
And then does that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. He has a drink. He has more than one drink. He tries to buy more alcohol. The guy says, I can't sell you alcohol to people. I can't sell alcohol to people that are already inebriated. He's like, come on, man. I'm the chief. And then he just wails on this poor guy who works at the laundry. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, yeah. I don't know how he expects to keep a job after that.
Well, I mean, I don't know if he's thinking about that at the time. He's
sure, of course not.
Pretty out of it.
Yeah. And, there, like I said, and I'll get more into it later, there's this underlying current of this thing he has to do.
Yeah. And this shirt thing, I forgot to mention, because I started by saying we should kind of take note of his, what happens with these shirts, because it's another example of something going missing. And there's a moment in when he goes to the laundromat the first time, and he's trying to get the shirts, and he sees Nora and talks to her, and she says, they're talking about the shirts, and she says, "Oh, I'm sure they'll turn up when you stop looking for them." And then they say, like, "Really?" And she says, "No, probably not." So again, that sentence could be interpreted as talking about the shirts, or perhaps it could be interpreted as talking about the people they lost, and that attitude, how they'll turn up once you stop looking for them. That's just not going to solve anything, and that's never going to work. Is clearly the attitude. Sure.
Totally. I mean, and the comparisons for that are all throughout this show. Mm-hmm. You can say it about everything. So Patti and Laurie, we're getting to the end here. Patti and Laurie come back to the compound. I don't know if it's a compound. Is it just a house?
It's a house. Well, I mean, it's a house, but it could be a compound.
Yeah.
I've forgotten what they call it.
Because that guy earlier said that they made an offer on his house, and they bought the church. And they get home, and Meg has transformed when they're back, right? She's all in white. She's got her pad. And she's completely done. She's full GR right now.
Yeah, she's ready. And it's a big thing for Meg, because we've seen already that she has problems with commitment, and she kind of postponed her wedding for 3 years, was it? So her character is a little, she finds it hard to commit to big life-changing things, and yet she's so ready to become a GR. So it kind of really emphasizes that.
And this incident with Gladys, I'm sure, has pushed that. Because now it's like, well, these are my people that I've decided to align myself with, and they're coming after us. They're going to kill us. Well, I'm gonna cowboy up, you know what I mean, and go full on into it. And so Matt thinks he's doing a great thing, and he's really good at pushing the wrong buttons, isn't he? He starts to pray. This is a very Fight Club move. She's not supposed to be a person that has a name, but he starts praying for her outside their house with a microphone and his people. And, this is the point where Laurie could break. She could cry because her friend is gone. But I think she listened to Patti. And she said, if I let this get to me, it'll be doubt, and doubt will be fire, and I will be but ash. And she takes the whistles delivered by her husband. I thought I remembered there being a physical attack, but there's not. It's just a whistle attack, blowing the whistle in his face.
Yeah.
Considering these two have a secret, too, that they saw each other outside Kevin's house earlier. It's and Patti is so happy. Do you see how happy she was?
Yeah, I saw that. And on the flip side, I saw how sad Matt got, because for a moment his face lit up.
Oh yeah.
He thought he'd won a victory there, but it wasn't to be. And I felt bad for him. He went out of his way to do that. He's trying to be nice guy, Matt. As we've seen, he does do that occasionally. He put the baby Jesus back. Now he's going to to pray for this. So his intentions were there, but no, it's not to be for him this time.
Kevin arrives home with his somebody shirts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, this is where this is what hit me this time, because I always have trouble relating to the show before because of the sense of, personal loss. If you suffer a personal loss and you watch a show, it hits you in a different way. And this time watching it, and forgive me if this gets too deep, but this will happen sometimes. It's why I connect to the show so much. I didn't realize he comes home and he has to tell Jill that he's getting a divorce. My parents divorced when I was 7. And for so long, it was the defining thing that happened to me. Because, memories are very strange things. And I remember being told. I remember the way the bed was, the sheets were folded and crinkled on the bed when I was in their bedroom when they told me. And now being a father, having that be a touchstone in my life to avoid it. Do you know what I mean? Like, this hit me really hard this time.
Mm-hmm.
Watching this and realizing that every single little lying undercurrent of anger is because in his mind, from the time he wakes up from the episode before, he has to let his daughter know this.
Mm. Yeah, and I just recently watched the film Marriage Story. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yep.
It's a great film, and sorry, I almost called him Kylo Ren. Adam Driver does a great job of portraying that same anger and frustration, and he's on a similar side to Kevin here in that he gets served a divorce letter without kind of expecting it, and he has to kind of somehow respond to this, and he's on the back foot the whole time. Yeah, I definitely saw similar kind of emotions in Kevin, and it's no surprise really. But it was a nice moment. It led into a nice moment, even though the divorce itself is obviously painful, in which him and Jill tell each other they love each other, which might be the first time we've heard that.
Well, at least from Jill. And, this is what this show does so well, and you'll see in the future. People say, oh, it's a depressing, horrible show. And, they always find that way to give you this glimmer of light that, makes this whole journey so worth it. We started the last episode with a factory, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a baby doll factory.
Yeah.
And this episode, we go to the ATFEC Center for Processing, and we follow Gladys's journey, this cold and feeling process of the final resting place. At the beginning, when she was being stoned, as horrible as it is to say, she did have doubt, whether it was caused by pain, physical pain, which it was caused by physical pain. She had doubt, and she screamed out, and she broke her vow, and she begged for her life. And so she had doubt. And when she had doubt, now here is the fire, and she is turned but to ash at the very end. I mean, it's just an incredible episode, and it has me hooked for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and that moment there is the one I was referring to a couple of times throughout this discussion. We have the mention of the fire and ash clearly from Patti, and we also get that moment from Matt when he talks about Thomas and how if Thomas were to speak to the other disciples of what he's heard, then he would be stoned and burnt up in fire, something like that. So this fate is pretty clearly foreshadowed at a couple of points throughout this episode. But even so, it's even though maybe I should have seen it coming, I didn't. Even though I made a note of Patti saying that and I made a note of Matt saying that, I still didn't expect this to happen. Because, I don't know, I guess maybe I assumed that nobody was capable of stooping to the level of such disrespect, which again maybe was wrong with me to assume that, given that we witnessed that phone exchange. But I don't know, a part of me just wasn't willing to believe that was what was going to happen, even as I saw it happening. And it was a little moment of, wow, okay, so that's that's where we are.
And
that's the world we're in.
It just speaks to the ecosystem of the world that the show is creating, and again, the ripple effect. And, what if that happened? Think the world is crazy today. What if happened if 2% of us just disappeared? Like, how insane would everybody go? Would it get to the point where governments are starting Dachau like structures to burn parts of the population and throw them away like trash? Because
right, and I
things
guess
have gotten so crazy.
We didn't. I didn't spot that possible kind of similarity there with the burning and the ash, and obviously the connotations of that are very, very dark. And that's the government that's in place, right? So.
And it's just taken to this heightened level because of this situation. I mean, it's just a really good episode. So I enjoyed watching it again. I'm not going to watch this one for a while. I don't want to give too much away. There is a little hope coming up. Not a lot. Trust me, but there's a little. So where does this stand in your ranking of the episodes you've seen so far?
Well, I mean, I obviously I got to give it credit for the stuff it gets right, and the on a technical level, speaking of the episode, is I don't know if I'm judging the episode for what it is, then it's a great episode, and it's probably right up there with the kind of the first episode. But in terms of my enjoyment, it's not at the top of the list. So it's probably it's one of them where you watch it and you appreciate it a lot for all the stuff it's doing and doing right. But personally, I just didn't really enjoy watching it. But maybe that was part of the fact that I was watching it and there was like family kind of around at the time, and I was like, wow, yeah, this is pretty intense. But
this is it's not a family show.
No, and I mean I didn't put it on with that intention, but yeah.
I got a kid that runs around here sometimes, and he just doesn't understand why I have some leftover things in my house and he can't watch it. And I'm like, well, the answer is Gladys, buddy. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I almost forgot. Last episode, I brought up Kevin's phone and Kevin's iOS operating system.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I promised to do a little bit of digging on that and come back to you with my findings. So I left it a little late, so I had to kind of scramble to find it. But I just sent you a couple of images. And for the interested viewers, I can tell you the moments when they happen if you want to look it up yourself. So in this episode, we see Agent, is it Kalani? Agent Kalani's calling it. Yeah, something like that. He's calling him. So I think it's when he's doing the alarm at the door, and he pulls out his phone, and he looks to have a pretty recent iOS operating system going. It's pretty sleek and modern. Versus in episode 1, just after. So Tommy gets a call from his dad, which he ignores. After that, it cuts to Kevin in the car, and we see it's pretty kind of small on the screen, but we do see that his operating system is completely different. It's got a picture of Tommy. It's only got the one red. I don't know. Maybe the difference is that on this one, he's picked up the phone, so that's why it looks different. And I may be kind of reading too much into it. And also that one's out of focus and this one's in focus, so that's why this one looks newer. I could be dead wrong.
Okay, but
even if you look at Tommy's phone, you can see the difference between Tommy's phone and Kevin's in terms of the operating systems they're using. And I know that it could be that Tommy has an older phone and Kevin has a newer one. But I mean, if Tommy's got an iPhone and Kevin's got an iPhone, you would think they would both be kind of having the recent iOS, which would be the same. So maybe I'm going way too deep on this. But
well, here's what I was going to say. If this wasn't a Damon Lindelof show, I would say you are. But you have to ask yourself one question when thinking about these kind of things, which is not crazy because I've dedicated a part of my life to listening to all this kind of stuff. What is the outcome of this setup with the phones?
The outcome, I don't. Well, the thing is, like, I don't even know. I don't know if it is a continuity error. Like I said, he's picked up the phone in one, and he's not picked up the phone in the other. But there's clearly a discrepancy between Tommy's system and Kevin's system, and I do think there's a difference between Kevin's system even when he's on the. I just have no idea, because it's one of those things that if you let it get to you, it could break the immersion.
Well, you have two choices. You choose to make something where the phones aren't around yet, so you make a period piece,
Mm-hmm.
or you make the phones a part of the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no two ways about it. And in the past 5, maybe 10 years, the trick of putting the text on the screen as people are getting the calls.
Right. No, I watched a great YouTube, I believe it was YouTube analysis about it was probably called something like the problem with mobile phones in today's cinema. And it was talking about the issue that films have where they'll do the over-the-shoulder shot where you can see somebody texting away, but the problem is you make that and then 10 years later it just looks weird because it's not what we're used to.
Right.
But then more sophisticated shows such as the example of Sherlock, all the text messaging that happens in Sherlock looks kind of sleek and modern because the words are appearing on the screen and we don't actually see the screen of the phone, which is a good way of doing it.
Well, I'm gonna put this up on the video. I'm gonna leave this part up, and I'm gonna put the photos of the phones up so people can look and leave a comment if you're listening to us on the YouTube to let us know what you think. And this was a great talk. We'll see you next time.
Okay, see ya.
See ya.